All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode, start of season 3 episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue show with your hosts, Alex and Christopher, the most handsome and capable of podcasters, Condit. Thank you all for your attention to this matter. Your American villain voices, and as always, the lukewarmest of lukewarm opinions. Chris looks disgusted, but I promise, Chris, it is not for our president. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out the amazing tweets that have been coming out of the governor of California today.
I wasn't sure where you were going at first because you told 2 lies right off the rip, and now I see where you went. Yeah,
you're right. The second most handsome and competent of podcasters, Christopher Condit. Everybody, as per usual, check out right below my head over here, everywhere where you can listen and subscribe. We'll get to our shout outs at the end of the episode, but if you're subscribed on YouTube, subscribe on Spotify. If you're subscribed on Spotify, go check us out on YouTube because we've got this really cool background that I designed and this awesome new logo and all these great areas where you can find out where to engage with us. I'm pointing at them if you're on an audio-based platform. Chris, we've got a long pod ahead of us today, but we can't dispatch with the pleasantries. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. The summer heat has returned here to North Carolina, but I'm living the dream. Things are going well, and I'm really looking forward to the new Premier League season. I watched a little bit of the Championship. I watched a little bit of the Super Cup. I'm all over the place here. Watched a little bit of the Community Shield. We got actual real football being played now, which is exciting. How about you, Alex?
I'm so excited for the season to be back, man. I'm looking forward to watching again with you. I will be up in Vermont. Happy birthday, John Fox. I don't think you listen, but still happy birthday. It is his bachelor party this weekend. I'm hoping to get up in time to catch the kickoff on Friday, and then Saturday morning, I don't know if I'll be up at 7:30, but I'll at least watch the replay on my laptop. That's what I can commit to. And by the way, if this doesn't make the cold open, everybody, Chris is not hiding a secret Manchester City support right here. This is Chattanooga Football Club, of which he is apparently a one-share owner.
Go support the local club. Yeah. I've not yet been to a game. When I saw the opportunity to buy a share, I bought one. But when I am in Chattanooga next, I will go to a game, which not sure when that's going to be, but we'll get there.
Good for you. Yeah. Well, we've got a beefy pod today. The season caught up with us. We were enjoying our summer vacations, and so we did not plan ahead. Last year we did this over 2 probably hour and 15-minute episodes, so we'll see what the final runtime is for this one. But we will be previewing Villa's season. We have some predictions for the larger EPL season, and then we're going to talk a little bit about Newcastle at the end. For any new listeners, our match previews are usually much more in-depth than what you'll see and hear today. But because we'll already talk about Newcastle a little bit in the EPL season preview, and I think our voices will just start to go by that point, this will be an abbreviated version. Also, we don't really have much to go off of. We typically do a very, very in-depth tactical, statistical preview, and obviously there are no stats to go off of. So, Chris, let's start where everybody wants us to start, and that is Aston Villa. Also, I guess apologies at the upfront. We teased interviews. We teased giveaways. We prepared none of those things. So we're going to try to get it done.
We do need to do that. We do.
We apologize. We've still got legalities to work out, and we've got some former players and some former executives that we're going to reach out to that we have good reason to believe will come on and chat with us. So stay tuned for all of those. But that is not what we are here to talk about today. We're not here to disappoint you. We are here to uplift you with everything that we have to say about Aston Villa. See what I'm still back mid-season form, Chris.
Yes, you are.
Let's start with the squad. So the way that we do this is if we were to start tomorrow, how do we feel about each position group? And thankfully, we don't start tomorrow. We start the day after tomorrow. So this will probably hold. Chris, I'm going to ask you for a letter grade, A through F. You can do pluses and minuses if you want. You can add any qualifiers that you want. But just let me know how you're feeling about the group. I'll give mine. And why don't we alternate? Okay. I'll tee you up for the first. You tee me up for the second.
Yeah.
So
works for me.
Strikers. I have Ollie Watkins. If you want to count Malin and Gasson as backups or half points here, by all means. But how are you feeling about our striking department?
I give it a B to B minus for depth, not because of lack of quality. I think that Ollie Watkins is a proven very good to great Premier League striker that I think we can get frustrated because we watch him day in and day out, week in and week out, and we see that sometimes he goes cold and has seemingly easy misses. But I think that it's easy to forget that like 20 goal involvements in a season, those guys just aren't hanging off trees. And I think I've said that before on this podcast, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but it's just I don't want to get so spoiled for quality that we don't realize how good we have it. Like when you have a player like this, the question is with whom are you replacing him? And there's a pretty short list for that, and you and I were big John Duran fans, just to go back to that last season at the January transfer window. And I would have taken Duran over Watkins because of his explosiveness and age. But now that looks like it was a pretty good move since Duran's already been moved from the Saudi league and things have gotten off to a rough start at Fenerbahce. So talent-wise, there might be a few guys or a handful of guys better. But in terms of guys that have a good head on their shoulders and just come in and deliver, you're not going to find too many better than Ollie Watkins. So depth is my main concern at that position. How about you?
Yeah, I also gave it a B minus. I don't love Malin as the backup. Gasson we'll see how long he takes to adapt. Obviously, we won't have him for a month and a half in the middle of the season due to AFCON. So is he really a backup? That's my main concern. We know what Ollie Watkins is going to do. We know that we have the depth and ideally goals in other positions. And now with Gasson playing a little bit of that Marcus Rashford profile to potentially back him up if he is out of form, like that feels okay. I'd feel a hell of a lot better if there was last year's John Duran still here. And I think that's the simplest way to put it. Another year, another very heavy usage year of miles on those legs. Whenever that happens back to back to back, it just starts to make me nervous. I know Ollie is super durable, but God forbid something happens. I
Knock
think
on
we
wood. My goodness.
run into some trouble this year.
I certainly hope not. I certainly hope not.
No.
And he has been extremely durable for the last 4 seasons.
So
let's get to wingers and attacking mids. I'm going to go off the list you have here because I agree with it. I think you've got everybody. JJ Ramsey, although he's got rumors to maybe be going to Newcastle, that's cool a little bit. Leon Bailey has rumors going to Roma. Daniel Malin, Morgan Rogers, Sammy Ills, Jimo Aloba, and Emi Buendia are the current players on the roster. What do you give this one, Alex?
You missed Gasson as well.
Oh, I did. I missed the new guy. I'm sorry. No one fights like Gasson.
That's right. No one fights like Gasson. No one kicks like Gasson. So if the season starts tomorrow and JJ Ramsey and Leon Bailey are still on the squad, I give this an A. We have so many options to do so many different things. And you and I have been lauding Unai Emery and the transfer committee's move towards this more positionless style of attacking football, where you've got guys who can play all across the front line, whether that's Morgan Rogers, Daniel Malin, Gasson. JJ Ramsey can be in a couple different positions. Leon Bailey is probably the only true, you only are seeing him at right wing, right? I don't really care about Sammy Ills at this point. Buendia lets you move Rogers out left and he can play centrally. So there's just so many ways to attack: speed, dribbling, passing, scoring, all that kind of stuff. I feel great about it. If Ramsey and Bailey leave, I'm dropping this more to a B, I would say, due to depth concerns. I don't think either one are week 1 starters. But I do think that they would be key points of a rotation, especially with a Europa League campaign, hopefully a long one ahead of us. And particularly when Gasson goes away to AFCON, I think we could be very thin for options up front if both those guys go.
I agree. I give this an A because I think it's in terms of depth and skill, it's our best position overall. And just because of what you said, we have so many players that can play so many different places and give so many different options. I think one of the things that it's pretty clear in the transfer policy and transfer market that Bill have done is they're looking for goal involvement from more than just Morgan Rogers and Ollie Watkins. They want more options and more attack and more threat. And I think they've achieved that goal.
Yeah.
On paper.
Totally
On
agree.
paper.
So
it's my turn to tee you up. No, it's your turn to tee me up, right?
I tee you. Jesus, we've only been through 2, man. Focus, professionalism.
We're in season 3, and you're still expecting professionalism. I'm going to ask you to lower your standards.
I didn't say expecting. I'm hoping. Midfield. John McGinn, Yuri Tielemans, Boubacar Kamara, Ross Barkley, and Amadou Onana.
I think, to me, this is an A. It's our second deepest position in terms of skill and different players that can be brought in. You and I have talked at length about how important Yuri Tielemans and Kamara are to the team, both the way they play. We've talked about how important John McGinn is for his not just his on the field ability and the fact that like no one can ever get around him, and that's coming out more and more when you watch videos online, but also just because of his presence in the dressing room and his. If you watch their social media and the players' social media, one thing about McGinn that's clear to me is he knows well how to handle the strain of the season, and he knows when to be serious and he knows when to cut it up and joke around. So I think that's a big key in a captain is understanding the vibes around the team and how to manage the players. Barkley and Onana are 2 players I really like. I expect a big season from Onana. I think we're going to see a lot of growth from him. His ability to stay healthy has always been a question. And then Ross Barkley is a great player off the bench for me. So I give this one a solid A.
I agree with everything you said. I gave this an A- for one reason and one reason only, and that is that I don't think that we have someone who does. Last year, I learned that we don't have someone that does what Boubacar Kamara does. As the year went on, it became increasingly apparent that Amadou Onana is much better served in more of the Yuri Tielemans backup role as opposed to the defensive shielder role. And that's no knock against him. Like that is just based on his game where he is most effective for us. And so if Kamara goes down for a length of the season, can he play there? Sure. Have we put John McGinn there as a deep lying defensive midfielder? Sure. But you notice how much it impacts the team. So just by not having a ready-made true 6 backup like an Enzo could have potentially been is just what keeps me from moving this from an A- to an A.
That's certainly fair enough. I understand that logic. So that brings us to another favorite position of ours, I think, on the squad to talk about. Left back, we have Luca Dean, Alex Moreno, and Ian Maatsen.
I can't believe Moreno is still here.
I double checked it when I saw it.
I had to check 3 times. I thought for sure he was gone.
Yeah.
Definitely a guy who came in, listen, great for half a year, very electric, kind of got Luca Dean back on his feet. And, I wouldn't say that was like money not well spent. And it's not like he's on huge wages either. I gave this an A. I think that this might be the best left back position room in the entire league right now. And I love the fact that in Luca Dean and Ian Maatsen, we have 2 guys who do entirely different things, allowing us positional flexibility to attack opponents differently. Luca Dean obviously playing in beautiful crosses for what seems to be an improved aerial Ollie Watkins. You've got Ian Maatsen, whose pace and dribbling ability just seems to cause chaos every time he goes forward. Luca Dean solid defensively. I don't envision how we could possibly upgrade here, even if we wanted to.
I agree. I think it's an A. I think Luca Dean and Ian Maatsen are both great players. They play differently, but they are 2 very good options. So it's a really strong position. that Villa find themselves in for this one. You said it exactly right.
Then let's move on to right back. Matty Cash and Garcia.
I give this one a C, maybe with an incomplete as a asterisk. Matt, I am a bigger fan of Matty Cash than a lot of the people online, and I think that he's a really good right back. Maybe not quite to the level of our left side, but he certainly is capable. Behind him, I'm not sure. I really don't know that the depth is there, and Matty Cash has had hamstring issues before, so immediately there's a concern there that if he goes down, you've got Konsa going out right, you've got Bogard coming to the right, you've got any number of options that may not be great. So depth and overall lack of certainty about the position behind Matty Cash, I can't give it more than a C.
Yeah, I gave it a C plus. I'm kind of in the same realm. These are two takes that, for as much as we appreciate the Villarati online, I don't understand, in that there's this constant refrain out there that Matty Cash is championship quality and Garcia is like a future stud. Cash is probably a mid-table Premier League right back, give or take. And that is perfectly serviceable. And I think he's a fine option for where we're at right now. Great squad player. And I think that people underestimate how much Unai Emery, who sees him every day, trusts him. And there's a reason why our defense was most effective and had the most clean sheets last year when Matt Cash was finally in the lineup consistently and healthy. Could you upgrade on him? Sure. Behind him, Garcia, I don't see it. I don't get it. He's young-ish, so there certainly is room for improvement there. Hopefully he proves me wrong. But in the instances where Matt Cash goes down and he is our week in, week out right back potentially, I'm very, very nervous for our right side. So given that, I don't think you can really go above a C plus here.
Yep, I agree.
Your turn.
Is it really? I thought it was your turn now. Sorry.
I just finished. If you don't have anything else to say on right back.
No, I don't. All right. So that leads us to center back. And this is another position where I think we feel pretty good about it. But let's see. Pau Torres, Ezri Konsa, Tyrone Mings, and Lamar Bogard. Alex.
I gave this a C minus.
C minus.
Yes. And maybe this is a little harsh, but from a starting lineup perspective, Pau, Konsa, and Mings are excellent. If you're playing FIFA and you're ensuring 100% health and you can game plan for no matter who you're playing against, this is fantastic and you don't need to change a thing. But they have all had significant injury issues in recent years. This isn't like a roll ankle and out for like 2-3 weeks. This is like out for a couple months. And once one of them is out for a couple months, things start to get nervy very quickly because they all have injury issues, particularly if Ezri Konsa goes down and we're looking at a Lamar Bogard, Tyrone Mings, or Lamar Bogard, Pau Torres combination week in, week out. I'm horrified. I don't know how we're going to sustain over that period. So the reason why is not getting in another right center back, and just being a little bit concerned about the health over a long year with all these guys. I don't feel great about this position long term.
I agree with that, and for that reason, I went B minus, only because I think the top end talent, like the assuming full health, you're going to be hard pressed.
A minus, yeah,
absolutely. You're going to be hard pressed to find a better group of center backs, right, in one room. So I have the same health concerns, but I went to a B minus. That's all. Like that's the only difference.
Fair enough. All right, goalkeepers, Emmy, and actually I haven't learned how to pronounce
Bezo.
Marco's name. Bezo.
Bezo.
Yeah.
And no Gauchi anymore, right? He's out. He went
Gauchi
out
is
on
out
loan.
on loan to League One. I think that's a good move for him, though.
I do too.
I'm happy for him. I think that's a good level, and it'll let him get some confidence and hopefully build into the goalkeeper that we hope that he is.
And play. I mean, just play regularly, right? So I give this a B plus, and the reason for that is only because Emmy took a little bit of a step back last year. But I do very much like what they did bringing in Bezo as a number 2. So that was a big improvement. I hope to see the Emmy Martinez of old this season. We'll see what comes around, but that's for that reason I went B plus. I think it has potential to be an A, but based on last year's returns, I went B plus, and we're also missing Emmy Martinez for the first 3 games of the season, so there is that.
I had the same grade for the same reasons. Emmy is in what I think you would deem his prime, but probably the last couple stages of his prime in terms of age. So was last year a signal of the decline, or was that just a down year for him? That's the question that I have. But much improved on the backup. You know, a guy coming straight off of a Champions League campaign. Great season in Ligue 1. So, you know, to the extent that we don't have Emmy or that Emmy struggles, I feel much more confident with him as the backup than Robin Olsen.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So if you're Unai Emery, assuming full health again, Chris, let's build your starting 11. And I guess as a little bit of a preview for Newcastle, if there's anything that you think isn't going to be implemented this weekend, but will be long-term to be our best 11, you know, you can note that here as well.
Well, I mean, you and I talked about this one. Little peek behind the curtain here. We talked about this one beforehand in the interest of time. And actually, you and I landed pretty much on the same best 11. So I'll run through it, and you can kind of add your thoughts. The back line, or obviously it's Emmy Martinez when he's available. Back line
so
is Cash.
Will start on Saturday.
Correct. Bezo will start game 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
But Cash, Konsa, Pau, and Luka Dean at left back. And we know who's in the middle. It's going to be Kamara and Yuri Tielemans. And then up front, we have Gasson, Rogers, Malin, Malin, and Ollie Watkins up top. You want to know why I said Malin? There is a reason. And if anyone knows what I do for a living, there's a forklift dealer in the Midwest called Malin. And it's it's spelled slightly differently, but it just I inherently say that automatically. So it's work to say Malin. So I apologize to Daniel Malin and all his family. And then Ollie Watkins up top. So your thoughts?
Apology accepted. Yeah, I had the same one. I really wanted to put Maatsen as the number 1 left back, but I'm not ready to do that just yet. I will say I think it's a coin flip for them each week, depending on who we're playing. Probably bottom half of the table, maybe a little bit more Maatsen, or vice versa. Unai is a much smarter tactical mind than me. The only other thing that I'll say is that, again, knowing that Unai takes a while to have guys build up their trust with him, I could see week 1 Newcastle, if JJ Ramsey is still here, if that's put to bed, he signs a new deal, I could see him starting at the left wing instead of Gasson.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think that's possibly even likely to happen week 1, assuming that JJ still will be here in a few days. So, but it's going to be interesting to see how Gasson beds in. I think that's the biggest challenge for him coming forward, because we talked about it in the last pod, and we've talked about it with multiple players now. We've seen guys come in and really struggle to take hold. We've seen guys come in and make an immediate impact and then fade back. So I want to see what happens with Gasson this season, because he's a player that, at least to me, looks like a really exciting player and the exact type of guy that would thrive in an Unai Emery system. So I think the potential there is for a big year.
Agreed. So With a couple more predictions that we're going to make here, we are the lukewarmiest of lukewarm podcasts. We're not here to give any hot or super cold takes. Chris, give us, I guess we're going to go through and give our lukewarm takes on who's going to get the most of certain stats and answer a few questions about where Villa is going to end up. So again, let's alternate here. I think the first one is going to be easy. Most goals.
It's Ollie.
Ollie Watkins. Yep.
Yeah. Who do you have for most assists? Since we don't really need to say anything else about Watkins, right?
No,
he's great.
No, we don't. I have Yuri for most assists. I thought about putting Morgan Rogers here, but if you looked at, I believe ESPN did the list over the past week of the top 50 players in the Premier League, and Yuri Tielemans was up there. His ability to, and the number of line breaking passes that he has, and not only that break one line, but often break two lines, is just insane. So I'm expecting another year of ascension from him. And I think that he is going to be a key linchpin, especially as we disseminate more goals throughout the team, hopefully get more from the wings. I think he's going to be the fulcrum for a lot of that.
So I think that's a good pick. I think for the same reason you can say Morgan Rogers is gonna see an uptick in assists, which is where I went. I know you mentioned as you were going to put him, or you thought about putting him there, but I think that more players across the front line give Morgan Rogers more options. I am excited to see this full attack when it really gets going, because I think it has the potential to be one of the most exciting attacks we've seen as Villa fans in decades. I don't know, it's just there. I know we like to stay lukewarm here, but there are so many good players here, and the additions, or the big addition, I should say, seems to be hopefully unlocking more options through the front line. So I think that could lead to Morgan Rogers for, he mentioned in a social media post today, the first goal is going to be Ollie Watkins for a tap in. I think that's the long-term goal, is essentially passing the ball into the net, and with Rogers' dribbling ability into the box, I could see that leading to a lot of assists with the players we have coming forward.
It's funny with all these guys and their ability to carry the ball at pace. I almost wonder if we're going to see a souped up version of kind of the way Crystal Palace has attacked devastatingly on the counter over the past year and a half, 2 years. You think about who they had with Eze, with Elise before he went to Bayern, with Sar Mateta, like that. They would get the ball and they were just up the field in an instant. And so I wonder if that's kind of something that we're trying to build as well, that once you turn it over in our defensive third, you're lost. Game over.
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible. Sure.
So, Chris, who do you have as your MVP? And for any of our US listeners, we're not going with the NFL, NBA definition of MVP, that is most outstanding player. We are going with the true definition of most valuable player to Aston Villa's season.
I think there are two answers here really, maybe three, but I'm going to go with Yuri Tielemans. For a lot of the reasons you just broke down, he sort of starts everything in the attack, and his ability to pick a pass has really come a long way. He's just been such a key player for the club now for 2 seasons, and the growth we've seen over those 2 seasons has been fantastic, and I don't see any reason why that's going to change this year.
So I'm actually changing mine last minute, and I know that you've seen it. I'm going to say Ezri Konsa. And the way that
I actually didn't look at this part. I didn't see your notes on this. Okay. I only looked at your lineup. Yeah.
So the way that I would define most valuable is, where do you have the biggest drop off from starter to backup? And I think Ezri Konsa going to Lamar Bogard is higher than my other consideration for this, which was Kamara to probably an Onana. And then even Ollie Watkins to some kind of combination of Gasson, Mullen, and Rogers. That's the guy who arguably our best defender, kind of a hybrid of Pau's passing ability and Mings's strength. I just don't. I don't know how we replace him. If he goes down, I think that's why he's the most valuable.
Yeah, that's a fair definition for sure. Now we're a little looser on the definition of this one. So what do you have for best newcomer?
Yeah, I wouldn't say other than Gasson, I guess that we could have like another newcomer. So I'm gonna get a little loose with it, and I will say Emi Buendia coming back into the lineup. I think the role that he's played in the preseason, I think it's clear that Unai wants to figure out a way to get him in sync with his teammates and more involved this year. And so, as potentially one of our first, let's say, two options off the bench every game when we kind of need goals, need some sort of offensive contribution, I think he's going to play a pretty pivotal role for the team this year. And as a little bit of a teaser, you'll see how much I believe that in, I believe, my answer to the next question.
So that my best newcomer, I like you. The easy answer is Gasson, but I decided to go with Daniel Malen
Okay,
because
that's fair.
the logic being that he didn't feature a lot in most of last season when he came on board. He didn't get to play in Europe. He was mostly used as a late minute sub for a good chunk of the season. So I think you're going to see him a lot more heavily featured. So that was my logic for including him as best newcomer, because I think we're going to see the impact that he can make as a player this season under Unai Emery and with the squad.
I think that's a really fair shout by you.
Thank you. Oh wait, no, now it's your turn. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so bad at this.
Chris, what is your surprise of the season? And you can define surprise however you want.
So my surprise of the season is actually, and I don't think it's going to be a surprise given how much we've talked about it in the last couple of podcasts, Emi Buendia's impact on the squad. I think that if he stays healthy, he looks ready to make a very real impact off the bench and in spot starts. I think that he's going to be a key player for Aston Villa this season, which is not something I think any of us would have thought 6 months ago.
I had the same one. I just added metric to it and said that he will collect at least 15 goal contributions across all competitions.
Woo! Yeah. So you have Emi Buendia, 15 goal contributions this season. I like it. I love that.
Again, nice. Across all comps. So that's
sure. Yeah, all comps. No, I got you. Yeah.
Europa League, like all that kind of stuff. But yes, very pivotal role.
Nice.
Yeah.
So at the end of the season, blank would be a success, blank will be successful, and blank would be a failure for Aston Villa. So 3 answers for that, Alex.
Yep. So I have at the end of the season, top 6 will be a success. I think if we can get another consecutive year of Europa League, not what we want, certainly would hurt financially the club, but already we're the only one outside the Big 6 to qualify for Europe 3 seasons in a row. So if we can stretch that to 4 and sort of establish it, we talk about mini leagues forming within the EPL. You've got the top 4. Then for a while, there was kind of like this 5 through 9. And then there was kind of the mid to lower table draws. I think you're seeing now there's the top 4. There is essentially like Villa and Newcastle. We'll see what happens with Spurs. And then you've got the Brightons, Bournemouths, whoever in kind of the rest of the table going down. And I think a 4th year in Europe really just further solidifies us as a destination, all that kind of stuff. So that's why it's a success. What is acceptable? I will say top 10 with a Europa League win. You could probably extend that to say top 10 with any trophy. That kind of also ensures Europe. But I chose Europa League because obviously that gets us back into Champions League. If we finish 10th and you said we were going to be in the Champions League next year because we put it all in a Europa League campaign, I'm fine. I don't want to drop to 17th to do it the way that Spurs did. I think that gets a little murkier. And it's hard to justify forward progress that way, but top 10 in Europa League win, totally fine. And then I will say top 7 or below with no trophy would be a failure. So I guess that's really like 7th or below. So if we're just in the Conference League next year and, we've had a bunch more close but no cigar quarterfinal, semifinal appearances. I think that's going to be really tough for the club to swallow as fans, but also financially in terms of our progression, recruitment, upward momentum, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So my answers are similar. So I'm gonna go through it quickly. At the end of the season, I have top six being success, just like you do, for the same reasons. I have silverware will be acceptable. Like, so if you miss out on top six, but get silverware, that's going to be acceptable. So similar again to what you said. I don't want to be in the, just above relegation and winning Europa or something like that. But if you're in top half and winning silverware, that's a good season for me. Particularly if you win Europa, because then you're in Champions League, like you mentioned.
Sure.
And then I have anything below seventh or below, like you did, as being a failure for the exact same reason. The financial aspect of it being the really big reason that I don't want to see any drop below Europa, because we really need to continue to build European momentum, and getting back into Champions League would be absolutely monster for the club.
Agree, because it's exactly what I said. So, Chris,
well, I mean,
what is your?
We're pretty similar in a lot of ways, so it's not always great.
We are,
but
we talk enough. We're turning into hive mind a little bit. But Chris, what is your word, or words, I suppose, to describe the upcoming season?
Hopeful.
Okay.
I'm more hopeful about this season than I felt in January of last season. I'm always filled with hope at the beginning of the season, but I think that the club have done really smart business, and have, as long as we perform well in the league, and in Europe, they may have been set up here for much longer term sustained success, because of the smart financial moves and player buys and sells that we've done so far. So for that reason, I think there's a lot to like in attack about this club. And me, I like goals. I like watching teams that score goals. I like soccer that is up and down and maddening and exciting, and I think there's potential for that to be here this season. So for that reason, I've got hopeful as my word. I like picking one word though. That's a good bit.
So mine is pivotal, and I'll expand upon this a good bit when we do our EPL season preview. So all I'll say right now is that I think that this season is wide open. And as I just kind of said in the last one, there is a good opportunity right now to solidify Villa as a perennial European competitor. And what that does for the books, for recruitment, for maintaining Unai Emery around Villa Park is key. But I think if we miss it this year, Tottenham getting Champions League money again. Manchester United spent a ton, expect them to kind of move up the table. You don't want to be overtaken by clubs like that. You don't want to have Newcastle kind of leave you in the dust. And that's potentially what happens if you kind of miss out. So I think that this is a pivotal one to securing Villa's place in sort of that tier just below the top four in the EPL.
I like that answer. That's good. Yeah. We're to you now, right?
And finally, Villa.
Oh my God!
Season by.
Wait, it was you, wasn't it? I'm so confused.
You did the last one.
All right, whatever. All right, and finally, Aston Villa will end the season by adding a trophy to the trophy case.
Wow, bold prediction. These are supposed to be lukewarm takes, Chris.
I think it's lukewarm.
Think that likely. Okay. Good for you. I, being apparently the resident pessimist, believe Villa will end the season by narrowly disappointing supporters once again, aka a semi-final appearance or two, but also not making the Champions League.
Now, we were just talked about how similar we are, but if you want to see how dissimilar we are, there's the big point where we don't ever meet. Like we're a few days out from the season, and Alex is already just getting his pessimistic pants on.
Listen, so don't take that prediction to be too pessimistic that I'm predicting the failure. Basically, what I'm saying is that I'm envisioning some scenario where we finish 6th and probably make like a quarterfinal, semifinal run in a couple different cups, but just kind of don't get over the limit there. So
Oh,
probably something akin to last season,
all right.
which was a great season, a lot of fun.
Yes, it was.
All right. All right, man. You don't know how to operate a snake prediction format. So
Apparently, I don't.
I don't need to hear this out of you. So that's all we've got on Villa predictions, although we'll probably touch on them a little bit more in the rest. Let's move on to our EPL season preview, Chris. We'll do this the same as last year. We're not going to pick top scorer or anything because we think that's stupid. But we do have a few interesting questions here that we will give our usual lukewarm answers to preview. So, Chris, I will kick this one off again, which means you get the next one. If you want to make notes on your sheet while I do this, please go ahead.
So I did put some notes on this one. I did put some notes here to make sure that I was covered.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
What is one team that you are interested in watching or following this year that is not Aston Villa?
So for me, it was Tottenham. I think that they are a fascinating club at the moment. They were like 6 points above relegation, and they won Europa. So they get Champions League. They fire the only manager that's won them a trophy in the last 100 years. I don't know exactly, a long time, 70 years, 60 years, whatever. Understandably, I get that. And they hire Thomas Frank, who I like and you like. I think he's a good manager. Wonder if this is the level for him, or if Brentford was more his level. And I think you know what I mean by that. Not everyone can adjust to the pressures of a top 6 club, and it's been difficult for anybody to adjust in the post Pochettino world at Tottenham. Nobody's really had a ton of success there, and they've lost Son. They added Kudus, but otherwise they haven't had any kind of big additions that I can think of. And I went through their transfers this season, so I'm curious as to how they're going to end up. They have to work with Champions League. They have to try and compete in the league as well, because you're not going to be able to win. I mean, you can win Champions League to qualify for Champions League again, but otherwise you're going to qualify like the rest of us, through the table. So it's going to be an interesting balance to me. And I think they're going to be one to watch, because I think it could go either way. They could fight for Europe, or things could go south and they don't have the horses to stay and they're going to be mid-table or lower. I think part of the reason I think that they're interesting is, to me, it's a tough one to call.
Yeah, I like that shout by you, and I have them involved in an answer to one of our later questions. But you lose Madison for the year, you lose your heart and soul in Heung-min Son, and the way that he left probably at the right time versus the way that Harry Kane left, you got to wonder like who's going to be better remembered by the fans in that stadium. You get the new manager in. I think we'll quickly see, to your point, how much of their poor performance last year was just exhaustion and injuries brought on by Ange's system, or that these players simply aren't up to snuff. And having the added competition of Champions League in there is certainly going to be a strain. But like you said, we both like Thomas Frank. We both think he's an inventive manager. They did go up 2 before pulling a Spurs and losing to PSG today. So, they're certainly an enigma, and I'm not totally sure where they'll end up either. But I had Crystal Palace, who burned me last year in my bold prediction for this one. I'm sticking with them again because they are off the back. I think the last 2 matches they've played technically professionally, they've won trophies on. So they're certainly on an upswing. They ended last season on a tear to finish, as they always do, in 12th place, but they've kept the band back together again. We'll see. The window is still open, so Eze could go. Gahey, obviously agitating for a move, could still go. But if they keep those guys another year under this manager, who I think you and I both like, could they shoot up the table and kind of tie it together for 38 matches? They're also going to be playing in Conference League, not Europa League, so a little bit easier of weeknight European competition. I'm very interested to see if they pull a Crystal Palace or if they finally kind of try and push up the table to something more substantial.
I agree. I mean, you and I have talked about this team for a long time. It's a team that we like. It's a bunch of players we like. It's a manager we like. They always finish 12th. But I and to relate them to Aston Villa specifically, they're a huge bogey club for us. Villa always struggle against Palace. So I do think they're going to be fun to watch. You wonder how the Conference League demotion affects them. I
Good call.
mentally, do you are they angry about it or are they resigned to it? So that I think that's going to be an interesting watch to see how they get up for the European competition. Do they want to come in and blow it out of the water, or are they upset and moping?
Or do they not try and just put it all into the league and be like, we're
Right?
not leaving
Yeah.
up to this fate again?
Yeah.
Yeah, very, 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 very interesting to see what's going to happen with them.
All
So,
right. So now it's my turn, right?
yep.
All right. See, we're getting there. We're almost, almost done with this thing, but we're getting there. Who is one non-Villa newcomer to the league you'll have your eye on? And I think there's a pretty clear answer to this. So you go ahead.
So you this was actually our most difficult question to answer last year because there weren't many newcomers to the EPL. So I think you and I both needed to get creative and pick guys who are either on loan and had previously been in the league but like never gotten minutes or something like that. And I think actually you had a decent call with Archie Gray and Spurs. He was kind of interesting.
I love that you remember that. That's great.
Yeah.
Good on you.
This year there have been a lot of newcomers to the league, and I think there are a lot of really interesting answers to this one, whether it's Turkey, who went to Man City, who it felt like every club in Europe was after, and statistically one of the best performers in Ligue 1 last year. How does he kind of adapt to basically, I think, take the reins from Kevin De Bruyne, who is not just a Man City, but an EPL and probably a global legend. You could say Šeško, after spurning Newcastle United to go to Manchester United, does that work out for him? Did he make the right move? You've got guys coming up from the Championship, a lot of interesting moves into the Premier League this year. But for me, it's Gyökeres. This is a guy who 27 years old, so he's not young, and he scored something like 97 times in 102 games in Portugal. Questions about maybe how much we rate the competition in Portugal. And prior to that, I think he had only competed in the Championship in England, or something around that level. So, this is a guy who has had a meteoric rise. Seemed like no one knew who he was until last season when he started scoring for, I guess, continuing to score for fun. And honestly, great celebration. I do really like it. I think it goes so hard.
Yes.
And so he's coming in to an Arsenal team that I think a lot of people in the league have kind of thought if they had a striker, they would have won one, if not multiple titles by now. But it's a position that they haven't necessarily been able to figure out. They've got a lot of creative forces around him. They've got a great midfield with Zubamendi, Rice, and Odegaard. And he's going to need to finish those chances. If he's another Kai Havertz, he is going to potentially cost Arteta his job. So he's going to need to hit the ground running and hit the ground running fast. And I am very curious to see how much his talent and his confidence, he's a very confident guy. You follow his tweets. He's a very confident guy. How much that translates, how much he is able to be successful, because he could make or break Arsenal's season.
So I have the same answer. It's Gyökeres for me, because mostly of where he ended up landing, right? And the whole drama surrounding the transfer, because he only wanted to go to Arsenal reportedly, and because that's been, like you said, the one major glaring spot that Arsenal don't have a standout player. So now they've got a striker. Now what happens, right? And
Yep.
so, like you said, I think the really interesting part here is, what if it doesn't work? Yeah, and I think it will, just for the record. Like, I think he will play well, but what if he plays well and they finish second or third and they don't win the title? Like, what happens then? So that's why I think, not just because of the player he is, which is he looks an exciting player, and anytime you get a guy that scores that many goals coming from any league, you're going to watch, right? You're going to see what he can do in the Premier League. But because of everything surrounding him at that club now, I think there are just so many subplots that are worth watching.
Yeah, totally agree. So, Chris, what is your hottest take that is in need of cold water?
I hate to do this to you, because I had the same one that you picked, because I'm just so tired of seeing it.
Well, I have a second one, so you take this one. I'll do my backup.
It's really just because I look at Twitter too much, because it's how I see what the Villarati are up to. But like, this whole thing with Aston Villa should have gone for Jack Grealish and blah blah blah. Like, come on, man. I don't. I am happy that Grealish is getting a chance to play at Everton, because his career at Man City, even though he's won a bunch of trophies, his career at Man City, really, outside of one good season,
I was going to say, he had one excellent season.
Yeah. And so I do want to give him credit for that. But his career at Man City has been a bust outside of that year. And a lot of that, though, is because, I mean, when they made that move, it was a curious move for Man City to make, and it felt like they were just buying a player so that nobody else could have him, because that's not an area where Pep focuses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm hopeful that we'll see the real Jack Grealish back at Everton. But all this noise about Aston Villa needed to bring him on, and they're doing the wrong thing by not taking a shot at Grealish. Like, we're trying to reduce the wage bill, man. He's on $300K a week. What are we going to do with that? We'll have to sell 4 players to get to that, or take on a loan fee that covers that wage from Man City. Like, it financially didn't work. From the player standpoint, I don't know that Grealish wants to be back here. And I think collectively, as a fan base, we need to move on. And that I love Jack Grealish as much as anybody. But I think it's time to move past it and focus on the players we have here and what's happening here now. Because I think if you look at this team and you say, yes, Jack Grealish is the guy we need to add, I think you're crazy. Like, I just don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I'll put a different spin on what you said then. I think if Jack Grealish were truly honest with himself and with the public, he would say that he stayed too long at Villa the first time and he should have left when we went down. Because I think that by the time he went to Man City, he was 25, 26 at that point, only had the one move in him. And now he's 28, 29, going to a lower mid-table club back where Villa were, to a certain extent with his tail between his legs. Now, to speak to the human that Jack Grealish is, reports say that he has taken significant wage cuts and made other concessions to make the move to Everton possible. I agree with you. I don't see the positional, the tactical fit at Aston Villa. I don't see the fit with Unai Emery's system. So whatever he was willing to come down to, it would have been one of, if not our highest earners. And I don't think that he necessarily would have fit. But like, it shows that he wants to play. He's not one of these guys that's just going to sit on the bench at a top club and just collect a wage. But had he gone to Spurs, for example, when we went down and Daniel Levy tried to make that bid where he wouldn't come up from 15 to 20 or whatever our valuation was, because he thought that he would take advantage of us going into administration. If Jack Grealish agitates for that move and Jack Grealish goes, I think his career has a completely different arc. I think he's a perennial Champions League contender. He was many years out of the England squad because Southgate didn't want to trust players from the championship at that time. So he has a much longer international career. And as much as we as fans will love him for sticking with the club, bringing us back up, I'm sure that he'll always remember that promotion and the goal after getting punched in the face. If you're talking about your career and becoming like a long-term legend, I think he lost that when he decided to stay with Aston Villa.
But a Villa legend now, still.
But a
For
Villa
some.
legend, and I guess
some.
it depends on
For some.
what matters to you, because there are
Yeah.
some that still don't like him. My other hottest take in need of cold water, and you might like this one, Mikel Arteta will not be Arsenal manager in the 26-27 season because of Arsenal's results in 25-26.
That is a hot take. That's a hot take. But it's interesting. It's what I mentioned with why Gyökeres is such an interesting addition to the league for me. I think that's one of the subplots that you have to look at. So absolutely good call there by you. So the next question is, which club will take the biggest step forward? And there are many options we can look at here.
Yep. So I listed 3 that kind of just need to be the choices by default. And that is Spurs, United, and Crystal Palace. They're all in the running here. They're all fallible for various reasons. But you look at Spurs, you talked about the wide range and outcomes that they have. They already have injuries, and their only major addition is Kudus, who you ask 5 West Ham fans, they think he's great. You ask 5 other fans, they thought he was trash. Did not necessarily have the biggest year last year. Rumors of Richarlison still potentially leaving. So at the same time, they finished 17th. If they crawl all the way up into mid-table and compete for nothing and get to 7th, it's hard for any other team to move up more than 7 spots. So like could just
they made Champions League last year. They won a trophy, right? Like you have to take that into consideration.
Right. So there is some success there for them to be able to do it. And again, good new manager coming in, all that kind of stuff. United, they're United. People are always going to expect them to finish at least top half. I'm curious about their signings. For what they paid Cunha and Mbeumo, statistics will tell you these were literally like the 2 highest overperformers in expected goals, expected chances in all of last year. They scored from ridiculously low odds. And so if you have any regression to the mean, these are 2 wild overpays. And so then what is supplying Seshko? And what do we think of Ruben Amorim as a manager? Ruben Amorim for Manchester United so far has something like a 26% win rate. You want to know who's second in Manchester United history in win rate since Sir Alex Ferguson left? It's Ralph Rangnick, who's at 42. Like
I actually
Amorim
knew that
is bad. Ten Hag was at 50-something% and they hated him. So, yes, United finished 15th, but do we expect the manager and the changes that they made to have this much of an impact to propel them up the table? Again, kind of like Spurs, you move up 5-6 positions, you might kind of win this question by default. But my ultimate choice is Crystal Palace for all the reasons that I mentioned before. I think it's clicking. Manager's good. They keep the band back together. I think they could jump from 12th up to 5th or 6th pretty easily. And I think ultimately I don't see it out of Spurs or United.
So I think all the reasons you laid out are great, and those are the 3 clubs I think that you have to consider the most. And I'm going to go with Man United, because while I think they overpaid, absolutely agree with you there, I do think we're going to see improvement. And if they go from 15th to 9th or 15th to 8th, that's going to probably get them there. Palace is the other threat, in my opinion, to take a step up, like you said. So I think that would be like 1B for me in this answer. And to me, Spurs, like, the biggest thing from last season is that they won Europa League and won a trophy and qualified for Champions League. So unless they qualify for Europa at a bare minimum, in my view, they're stepping back, even though they may finish 13th, 10th, 9th.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they won a trophy.
Fair enough. You can define all of these how you want to define
Yeah,
taking.
I do think they're going to finish better than 17th, but I don't know that it's going to be a super easy climb, because like you talked about, like we've talked about, they've already got injuries. They don't have major additions, and this team struggled last year. So like you said earlier here in the pod, the question for them to me is, was it Ange or is it the players? Or a combination of both. It could be that as well. So I think they could move up a bunch. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to finish bottom half, but above 17th. I think somewhere around 11th or 12th is probably a good space for them.
I think that's fair. Yeah. So, Chris, which club do you think is going to take the biggest step backwards?
So I think, and I'm basing this on the most recent news about Isak, I think it's Newcastle. They haven't been able to bring anybody in. Isak has flat out said he's not going to play. So I think they're going to struggle to maintain their level, and that it's solely because of that. Like they've just missed out on transfer after transfer after transfer in the window, and their best player is reportedly saying, "I'm never going to play for you again," and it's August 13th at the time of this recording. We'll be releasing it probably tonight, first thing tomorrow. So August 14th, season starts in a couple of days. That's trouble, if you ask me. So for that reason, I say Newcastle.
They were one that I considered. Again, they've only brought in Alonga. I think even if they buy Ramsey, I don't see that he kind of makes the difference for them as much as I like him as a human and as a Villa player. And they've got the Champions League to contend with. And last time they were in the Champions League, what they finished 8th, right? Or 7th, something like that. So they took a step back while maintaining
8th, because they didn't even qualify for Europe at all. Yeah.
So I'm very curious what's going to happen with this Isak drama. I find it so hard to believe that a player would be so pissed off that they would say, I'm not playing for a whole season. I'm just going to take a year off in my age 26, 27 prime because I'm that upset. I have to imagine he would get reintegrated. This might be one of my hottest takes, but I don't. I ultimately didn't pick them either, but I just want to talk about how I feel about them for a second. And that's Liverpool, actually. And here, there are a lot of people that are picking them to win the league again. And on paper, you think Ekitike, great buy. Frimpong, great buy. Kirkish, great buy. They might get Isak as well. Great buy. Here's what I'm thinking. And ultimately, I don't have them falling out of the top 4, spoiler. But they were not a super dominant champion last year. They only had 84 points. Now, granted, how much of that was them realizing they had the title won by January and just kind of taking their foot off the gas? Maybe, but it's not like they put all their eggs in the Champions League basket either. They were out before Villa was. So, if they take 2 more losses and you expect improved performances from Manchester City, from Chelsea, which I do, they drop from 84 to 78. All of a sudden, they're probably down to 4th place. So then you look at the additions and kind of what they have. And this is a common argument that you and I have about Villa. I don't know who's defending for them. Frimpong is essentially an auxiliary right winger. And I'll give my coworker Nick credit when he said, well, it's not like Trent was defending all that much at right back either. And, fair enough. But they don't fix that. Kirkish, I think, a much more attacking, less defensively minded left back than Andy Robertson. And then you look at the midfield and the teams that have those fullbacks flying forward, you think like some of the Pep teams in the past, things that like he has Rodri. When Chelsea did things like that, they had Conte. When Villa do things like that, they have Boubacar Kamara. I don't think that Liverpool really has like a true shielding six like they had with Fabinho several years ago to kind of protect. Van Dijk is another year older. So they already gave up 40 some odd goals last year, which is a lot for a champion with the defense that they have and the way that I think Slot is going to go all out attack. Could they wind up giving up 50-55? And does that move them down to fourth place? I think that there is a universe in which that happens. They might score 120 goals, but I do think that they might lose a few more games as a result of that. Still don't think that they're going to be the biggest drop off. So the other two that I considered, Brentford, lost Mbuemo. As much as I said he was an overperformer, still a great player. Lost their manager that kept it all together. They lost his entire backroom staff and replaced him with a set piece coach. And Wissa might be out the door as well. I think that they're going from someone competing for like 8th place to someone who's probably more in the 14th, 15th range. They lost their captain Norgard to Arsenal. So like there are some big holes there that they're trying to fill. And then the final one is Nottingham Forest, who is my ultimate pick. I'm sorry, Beebs. We're going to bring one of my old coworkers on who is a huge Forest fan at some point this year. The analytics last year said that not only should they not have finished 7th, they should have been something like 15th, 16th, 17th, depending on the metrics that you used. So I'm expecting a regression to the mean there. Yes, they've kept the band together, but they've lost Alanga. I don't know that they've really done much to replace those guys. They were able to, at gunpoint, get Morgan Gibbs-White to stay. But I also
maybe
am not
literal gunpoint. We don't know.
Seriously. I'm also not expecting Chris Wood to have the expected goal over performance that he did last year. Great for him. And at the year that he did it, gotta love a Kiwi. But I'm expecting them to really, really, really fall back, especially as they compete on a Europa League front.
Yep, I think that's a great pick. And I just want to point out for anyone that's not watching on YouTube, you should watch YouTube because my dog George apparently really liked Alex's Liverpool take and popped up behind me. So you can see my dog react to Alex.
George is behind me.
Yeah, what's that?
If George is behind me, then it must be.
He jumped right up on that one. So yeah, something about it really struck him. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing with Nottingham Forest is like you can't expect Chris Wood to have that crazy over performance on XG. I know XG isn't everything because actual goals do count and XG don't, but like it's just it was crazy to see that kind of performance from him as a player. Not that he's not a very good player, but I just don't think you're going to see that from him next year. And I think that's going to be the biggest reason they step back, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. And honestly, I'm just going to add here, I don't really know where I was supposed to fit this in when I said I would later, but the fact that this league is a total crapshoot, look at what Brighton lost in João Pedro and Adringa, who went to Sunderland, and some other members of their attacking outfit. You look at Bournemouth, who essentially lost their entire back 5, but maintain Andoni Iraola, keep Semenyo, and keep some of their forward guys. Do they take a step back or a step forward with some of those replacements that they bring in? There's so much movement around the league this year. Really, Fulham are the only ones who have stood pat. So, I think there are a lot of answers to this question of who stepped the furthest back and who could potentially step the most forward.
Yeah.
So, Chris, give me your predicted top 6.
Okay. So you just took a dump all over them, but my top 6 is Liverpool winning the season again. I like what they've added. I understand your concerns, but I think, like you said, this sort of gets to the heart of our biggest disagreements as football fans. I love the idea of just all gas, no break, and trying to score 1,000 goals. Second, I have Arsenal. Third, Chelsea. Fourth, City. And now at this point, like I knew I was going to have those 4 in some order. I think when I started doing this to prepare for the show, once I got to 5th, I really started to struggle, and sort of for the reasons you mentioned, because there's been so much movement around the league. I wasn't sure who to slot where, and I'm still operating under the assumption that Isak is not going to play for Newcastle. So that's what he has said reportedly. So I'm sticking with that right now. That if he plays and plays well, that changes my prediction probably. But I have in 5th place Aston Villa, which would be a successful season, a very successful season for the club. And then behind that is where I think it gets really interesting. Is it Crystal Palace? Is it Newcastle? I don't think it'd be Bournemouth. I don't think it'd be Spurs. Does Man United make a huge jump? I don't think so, but not impossible. I think that 6th place spot is anybody up for grabs, and you could see someone else jump Villa into 5th, and you could see some movement. I think the top 4 is going to be what it is. I really do. Some version of that, but I think 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th is going to be a really interesting place to be this upcoming season.
So who do you ultimately have?
I'm sorry. I ultimately landed on Crystal Palace. That was bad. Okay. I did not land that plane. I ultimately landed on Crystal Palace. Yeah.
Okay.
For all of the, I would give you my reasons, but you've already talked so much about Palace. I don't need to really add anything to that.
Fair enough.
Just rewind the pod a little bit and you'll hear it.
Yeah, how do I get like a B team kit or something? Like Crystal Palace clearly over the past couple of years, right? It's like my second favorite club with how highly I think of their manager and some of the guys over there.
Reach out to Rebecca Lowe. She's a big
I know.
Yeah.
Although she's probably pretty devastated right now that they're going to be in conference. Maybe she thinks they have a chance to win it. Who knows? So my top 6. I think City are rising back to the top. I just don't see back-to-back down years from Pep. You get healthy again. You get Rodri back, who I think arguably the best player in the league. I think they ultimately do it. My other 2 title contenders, and I think they'll ultimately finish in this order, are Chelsea and then Liverpool. Chelsea just seeming to really get it together in the Club World Cup. How seriously did other teams take that? I don't know, but PSG sure knocked the teeth out of some teams and still got beat by Chelsea in the final. I don't ultimately think that Chelsea wins the whole thing because, you can be more suited to cup football than league football. So maybe they wind up going further in the Champions League than they even do in the EPL. And then Liverpool, for all the reasons that I mentioned before, I'm expecting even a slight step back, and just because I'm expecting better out of the other teams around them, even if they were to stay flat, I'd still have them around 3rd place. And then 4th, to my prediction earlier, I have Arsenal. I don't think that Gyökeres is really going to be the answer. I also think that they overpaid for Nani Madueke. I think he's a younger kind of Raheem Sterling-esque signing for them. He's going to blow hot and cold. I don't know that he's any better than Gabriel Martinelli, who I think really frustrates the fan base. So I'm not sure that I'm totally convinced by their additions.
And that makes sense why you had your hot take then, because there's no chance. There's no chance Arteta survives a 4th place finish. No chance.
No. And then 5th, like you, crapshoot. To stay true to my prediction earlier that Villa is going to let us down and not get into the Champions League, I had to move someone else into 5th, as much as when I kind of went through the options, I was like, well, I kind of feel the best about Villa of all the teams that are remaining there. I'm going to say Crystal Palace make the jump. The other team that I considered for this was Brighton. I think even with the loss of João Pedro and Adringa, they've got a really good squad there. They've proven to be astute maneuvers of the transfer market, and I really like their young manager. So I know they had some down months last year, but I think they could jump up. And then I have Villa in 6th. After them, I think toss an effing coin. Anyone could finish 7th through 14th.
That's 2 years running though for Alex and Crystal Palace, just so everybody knows. So let's see how year number 2 pans out, and we'll revisit this in August of 26 when Alex is once again predicting Crystal Palace to finish in Champions League, and they finished 12th.
I would like to point out though that I did get my Villa placement correct.
Good for you. Yeah, excellent work.
I'm not
Proud of
happy
you.
about it, but I did get it right.
There you go.
You got Archie Gray. I got Villa's position.
We all have little wins, right?
Yes. And so that is it for our EPL season preview. So now we are on to our final preview as we move into 1 hour and 19 minutes of recording. Probably a little less if you're on Spotify since you won't get the intro. Newcastle, 7:30 a.m. Saturday Eastern time at Villa Park. We kind of just talked about Newcastle, so we'll breeze through this. Not much has changed for them since last season. The biggest question is what's going to happen with Isak, regardless of whether he stays through the window or not. I do not envision them putting him out there on Saturday. I mean, Chris, you saw this news that he was uninvited from the team barbecue.
Yeah.
Like that's insane to me that you potentially need to reintegrate this guy. It's just players and like girlfriends and kids and wives. And they're like, nah, no hot dogs for you.
Yeah.
Get your own glizzy. Incoming for them, only Alanga and Aaron Ramsdale, who meh keeper, I suppose.
Yeah.
Outgoing transfers, they've lost Longstaff, Dubravka, Lloyd Kelly, center back, who's on loan at Juve, goes to Juve potentially, and Isak might be gone as well. Maybe they have Jacob Ramsey, although even if they get him in before Saturday, I doubt he's going to play. And honestly, Villa probably would just not sell him until Saturday evening. So, Chris, what are you expecting from Newcastle, from Villa, from this game? What are you looking forward to other than just
Obviously
it
it's going
being
to
the
be
return of
5-1 something, right? It's 5-1. So someone's going to win 5-1. Not sure who. But so we've talked about this before. Eddie Howe is a manager we really like. There are a lot of players on that Newcastle side that we either really like or really hate because of the way they play against not just Villa, but in general. I think that the Isak stuff is such a big distraction, though, because you can't like that is hanging over the club like a black cloud, and like you said, the uninvited to the team barbecue is crazy. It's that toxic around the team that sort of stuff is happening. So I'm hopeful from a fan perspective as an Aston Villa fan that Villa can take advantage. The danger, if we're talking about the mentality around the dressing room, the danger is that you may see a sort of circling of the wagons and the team play really well in spite of Isak or in spite of all of the issues that are circling around them right now. I'm not sure what's going to come out. I think this is a really tough one to call. And again, you've got the history of these two teams in the last several years just beating the crap out of each other, one then the other, So I really am not sure how it's going to go. I think it's going to be a fun one to watch. I can tell you that. I think that Villa are going to win. I think, but you also wouldn't I wouldn't be shocked if Newcastle just came out and somehow won 3-1 or something like that. So I know that's a terrible preview, but I have no good bearing on how this is going to go. I don't.
I mean, we're analytical individuals, so it's hard for us to make predictions based on vibes. What I'll add to what you say is just that Newcastle continues to maintain a phenomenal midfield and I guess slightly outer attack when you look at Tonali, Guimaraes, Joe Linton, Anthony Gordon, and now you add what is a burner in Anthony Alanga, who seems continually tailor-made to destroy some of the things that Villa try to do defensively. But they don't have a central striker. Like Isak is not going to play, and they let Callum Wilson go. So I'm literally looking at their roster right now, and there is not a central striker in the group. There's William Osula, who I've never heard of, who might be a central striker. He's a 22-year-old Dane. So I don't know who's gonna score for them this weekend. They missed out on Chesko, and I think they felt pretty confident about getting him in, and now they didn't. Um, Obviously, there were other buys that they wanted to make, and now there's even been rumors around them going after Ollie Watkins. And Villa can never win at St. James Park, no matter who they trot out there. But I almost kind of wish that this game was up at Newcastle as opposed to Villa Park, because it might be the one chance for us to get something up there.
That's a good point. That's a good shout.
Villa do better against Newcastle at home. And so from Villa, we talked about our lineup earlier and what we expect out of it. I think that Newcastle, to your point, is probably, with no Isak, going to try and sit back and keep this to a 0-0 1-1 situation. So I'm predicting a narrow Villa victory as we kind of start to move through our gears a little bit. I'll say that it'll be ultimately 2-0.
I like that. I'm landing on something like 2-1 because I don't think we're going to keep a clean sheet in the first game of the season without Emi Martinez. But who knows? Maybe we will. But last season, when Robin Olsen came in, was when we started keeping clean sheets. So maybe it's just backup keeper clean sheet time. But I'll say 2-1 Villa for the victory to get my official prediction on record. But like I said, would not shock me if somehow Newcastle pulled out a win here.
Yeah, I mean, same, right? Every time we get too confident is when we get punched in the mouth. I do think this is going to be an interesting one to see what happens off the bench. I don't think we're getting 2 goals out of the starters. I think it's going to be one where we wear them down, potentially bring in something different. So, maybe my bold prediction for the match: look for an Emi Buendia or a Gasson to do something interesting off the bench. Maybe even an Ian Matson.
Yeah, and I think you and I both don't think there's any chance that Gasson starts this game. I just don't see it. So, but it'll be a fun one, and I'm super happy that Aston Villa football is back. Right, that's a positive that we can take into the weekend here, and now hopefully we come away with 3 points.
Absolutely. And, it still stands what we covered when the schedule release came out. We have an easy start to the season by all metrics, at least based on, last year's finishing positions. So we got to make the most of these first 5 games. If we can put 12 points on the board over the first 5, or, 13, 15, that goes a long way towards getting us to where we need to be by the end of the season.
Exactly right. Yep.
Well, Chris, we made it.
We did.
Last thing, as we promised at the outset, join the convo because you will get a shout out. All of these came from YouTube, but Spotify, you can comment by episode. You can hit us up on Twitter, slide tackle into our DMs, and or comment on the post. And then, of course, you could DM us on Instagram, comment on the post, all that kind of stuff. But definitely get involved because we will shout you out. And if you're interested in hearing us talk about something, you wanted to hear us talk about the relegation race and what we expect Villa to be nowhere near, happy to do it. Just let us know. We're here for all suggestions. But shouts out on YouTube to Groovy Green Bear, Black Country Villain. You've been around for a bit. Know you've commented a couple different times, but here's your official shout out. Thanks for sticking with us. Was it Flage0027 from Birmingham originally? Appreciate all the love from across the pond. And thank you for liking the Gasson song. We might need to write some lyrics and do a full cover sometime soon. If we get enough excitement behind that one, we'll go full Jack Grimsey.
If we get enough alcohol
thin chain that I wear.
No, not excitement.
Yeah.
We need alcohol. I'm not singing without that. No.
Chris is a very timid karaoke singer, but I'll get his wife to support us in this. Luwazi Masuku 7248, thanks for popping in, and Roger 4437, thank you for subscribing. We hope we do you proud over the course of the rest of the season. And to all our other subscribers, listeners, commenters, raters, and reviewers, thank you all as well. Unfortunately, I have not figured out a good method yet by which we can see all your names. Otherwise, we would shout you out already. So the only way is to comment and get our attention.
Thank you.
Chris?
We appreciate it.
Yeah, Jesus, are you just gonna stay silent for the whole thing? Thank the fans.
Thank you. No, I love seeing it. I happened to look at the YouTube page today before we recorded. So and like Alex said last week, if you get interaction on Twitter, it's more than likely me. If you get interaction on YouTube, it is 100% him. So also same for Instagram. So do reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. We'd love suggestions. We really appreciate you guys sticking through, and clearly many of you listening or watching till the end, which is very flattering. And it's nice to know that this stupid little idea we have is at least resonating with a few people. So thank you.
Absolutely. So thanks, everyone. We will be back early next week with a Newcastle recap, and then later in the week previewing the next game. And until then, Chris, EPL and Villa are back. And so it hits a little extra hard when we get to say, up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.